No, someone's asked me to unmute.
Dr. Anupam Datta, sir, can you hear me?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Diva Barua, ma'am, can you hear me? Diva Barua, ma'am.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, ma'am. Please switch on your video, ma'am. So, welcome to this international webinar on the importance of arts and humanities for our common future, organized by the IQSC and the Academic Subcommittee of Assam College Teachers Association in collaboration with Assam College Librarians Association. And today it's a very indeed great moment for us because this is very important and very timely topic we should discuss in this manner. And really, I'm very much thankful to have the resource person, Dr. Jeffrey D. Long, sir, with us. Sir, thank you and welcome to this platform. And before going for the further agenda, there is a very important announcement for the participants that this program is live on the Facebook, and we're going to share the feedback link just before 10 minutes of the completion of the program in the Zoom chat box. So I request all the participants to be present till the last, and without wasting much time, I'm Dr. Virendra Pal, the coordinator of ICT cell of Assam College Librarians Association and also the Librarian of Gulliver College welcomes you all. And I'd like to move to Dr. Diva Burwa ma'am, the coordinator of IQSC of L.C.B. College for further program. Ma'am, please.
Hello, a very good evening to all our esteemed participants. I welcome you all to this interesting webinar. Interesting because we will gain insights into a very pertinent area of interest, namely the importance of arts and humanities for a common future. The new education policy of 2020 is underpinned by a wholly new dimension where the emphasis is on multidisciplinarity and a holistic education across the sciences, social sciences, arts, humanities, and sports for a multidisciplinary world in order to ensure the unity and integrity of all knowledge. We have with us today academicians who, in their own ways, wield considerable expertise in this knowledge domain. First of all, I would like to introduce our inaugural speaker, Dr. Anupam Datta, Assistant Professor in the Department of English of Borbhag College. His interests are multidimensional. He is the secretary of the academic subcommittee of All Assam College Teachers Association. He also holds the position of joint secretary, Assam chapter, English Language Teachers Association of India. Presently, he is also serving as a member on different committees of Guwahati University. Dr. Datta also has to his credit a number of publications in ISBN and ISSN journals, as well as paper presentations in national, international conferences in India and abroad on different areas of ELT, English literature, and educational issues. His areas of interest include ELT methodology, literary theory, post-colonial studies, educational policy and practices. Currently, he is engaged in interpretations of the new education policy of the Government of India 2020. Today, he is among us to inaugurate this national webinar and share with us his views of the emerging education scenario. May I now request Dr. Anupam Datta to do the honors by sharing his insights with the participants.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, the Honorable Principal, L.C.B. College, respected Dr. Jeffrey Long, coordinators of the event, Diba Borua and Dr. Indrani Chaudhary, and esteemed participants. First of all, on behalf of Assam College Teachers Association, I extend warm greetings to all of you. And I'm thankful to the organizers for having me here this evening in this webinar and giving me the opportunity to share a few thoughts on the subject under discussion. I've been told that I've been given 15 minutes, so I will try to restrict myself to the allotted time and try and finish off in a hurry. The fact that we are here this evening discussing the importance of arts and humanities for our common future implies not only how important is the study of arts and humanities for our for our societies, but also that their studies have been in certain ways undermined in our schools and university systems for a few decades, for the last few decades. And the people who believe and realize that arts and humanities must be an integral part of our education and must be treated with as much importance as pure sciences, the so-called pure sciences and management disciplines, if not more, are somewhere concerned that perhaps the arts and humanities disciplines uh, have been receiving decreasing importance in our education systems. And this seems to be more or less the global phenomenon. Studying humanities involves moving beyond the search for the immediate and the pragmatic. It opens one to the examination of the entirety of the human condition and encourages one to cope with the complex moral issues ever present in our lives. It encourages reflection and provides one with an appreciation and empathy for humanity. This is why critical thinking usually done in humanities goes beyond the mere problem solving. Given the state of our country and the world today, with so much of divisions, violence at the societal front, and stress and anxieties at the individual level, study of arts and humanities, I believe, uh, is more important now than ever. The humanities help us understand one another through the study of languages, histories, philosophies, and cultures. They foster social justice and equality, and they reveal how people have tried to make moral, spiritual, and intellectual sense of the world. The humanities teach empathy. They teach us to deal critically and logically with subjective, complex, and imperfect information. And they teach us to weigh evidence skeptically and consider more than one side of every question. They teach us to reason about being human and to ask questions about the world. The study of humanities uh, thus significantly contributes to developing informed citizens who have a critical eye to look at every phenomenon. If we look at India in the last few decades, there has been an increasing emphasis on science and so-called professional education, like business management studies. Whether this has been able to develop science education to the desired level or not is debatable, but emphasis on science and business studies has somehow led to a decreased importance attached to the study of arts and humanities. Though humanities continued to be part of the school curriculum and universities continued to offer some humanities and arts disciplines, the general attitude towards humanities disciplines has been that their study is without much practical utility and is therefore less important than the study of pure sciences. Even government policies seem to be lopsided in treating sciences and humanities. While development of science and technology has been the priority with quite a few institutions of higher education and research coming up in the last few decades, which are primarily devoted to the study of science, technology, and even professional education. Institutions like the Indian Institute of Technology, known as IITs, IIMs, Indian Institute of Management, Indian Institute of Information Technology, All India Institute of Medical Science, AIMS in short. But equal priority has not been given to the development of the study of arts and humanities. In some IITs in India, humanities disciplines were created a couple of decades back, but even there the humanities received marginal focus. The problem with our education has been the rigid separation between humanities and arts and science and commerce disciplines. There seems to be a general assumption that if you are into sciences or business studies, you have no business studying arts and humanities. This rigid compartmentalization has led to undermining of arts and humanities, as the study of these disciplines is not supposed to develop employability in the students. So right from the secondary school level, there is a sort of a mad competition now among, for the last couple of decades, among the students, pushed by the already biased parents and the people in the neighborhood to pursue science in the best of the institutions. Arts and humanities hardly remain an option for those students who do well in the studies and mainly in the examinations, in the board examinations. The competition is as if to prove that you are smart enough to get accepted into the sciences and finally to get into IITs or All India Institute of Medical Science, or at least into another engineering or medical college. To realize that aim, parents would even send their children to several tuition and coaching classes, institutes, which have come up in great numbers in India in recent times. In a way, this has also led to an unwanted commercialization of education. So many children are, virtually bullied into the science stream, regardless of whether they have the aptitude for it or not, whether they actually want to pursue sciences or not. If you did not at least try to be an engineer or doctor in India, then you are most definitely not a smart student. That's seems to be the assumption. Such a mindset and such undesirable competition is not only socially detrimental to a developing country like India, where a large section of the population are poor and cannot afford to get into this sort of a competition, but it is also undermining the very important study of arts and humanities. The study of pure sciences, notwithstanding its importance, do not give us an opportunity to understand the social order of the world that we live in, the politics of the land we inhabit. Doesn't give us an opportunity to discover the wrongs and the rights of our past that history tells us or lets us know. The entire quagmire of the economic system that we study in economics, and the understanding of languages and culture that make us what we are as social beings. These are all extremely important lessons and develop critical thinking skills that we essentially need in our societies. But in trying to push sciences forward, we are somewhere neglecting other important disciplines of study. But now, with the new the national education, the new national education of policy, national education policy of India, which was approved by the Indian Union government on the 29th of this July, seeks to end this lopsided treatment of streams and disciplines. Hopefully, the implementation of the policy will put an end to this unwelcome competition among students in India to pursue engineering and medical studies and bring back the importance of the study of arts and humanities, social sciences, all other disciplines except the pure sciences and business studies back in our education system. Now, how does I'll very briefly touch the new education policy, as I don't have much time to elaborately talk about it. I'll just briefly talk about the new education policy. Reset is the subject of today's webinar. Now, how does the new education policy 2020 wishes to put an end to this rigid compartmentalization of streams and the resulting neglect of some disciplines over certain other disciplines? This policy aims to overhaul the curriculum right from the primary to the university level to create an education system that will impart holistic education to the students. Let me read out a very small excerpt from the vision statement of the National Education Policy, which says that the policy envisages the curriculum and pedagogy of our institution, envisages the curriculum and pedagogy of our institutions must develop among the students a deep sense of respect towards the fundamental duties and constitutional values, bonding with one's country, and the conscious awareness of one's roles and responsibilities in a changing world. The vision of the policy is to instill among the learners a deep-rooted pride in being Indian, not only in thought, but also in spirit, intellect, and deeds, as well as to develop knowledge, skills, values, and dispositions that support responsible commitment to human rights, sustainable development and living, and global well-being, thereby reflecting a truly global citizen. This is an excerpt from the vision statement of the National Education Policy. Thus, in the very vision statement, the policymakers make it clear that they are aiming to create a system of education that will impart holistic education, which will have equal focus on all disciplines. Now, talking about the school education, the policy says that the aim of education will not only be cognitive development, but also building character and creating holistic and well-rounded individuals equipped with the key 21st century skills. And it says that art integration as a cross-curricular pedagogical approach to be utilized in schools, and various aspects and forms of art and culture will be utilized as the basis for learning of concepts across subjects. And it therefore says that this art integrated approach will strengthen the linkages between education and culture, which is very important. It further says that holistic development and a wide choice of subjects will characterize the school education now. There will be no hard separation among curricular, extracurricular, or co-curricular, among arts, humanities, and sciences, or between vocational or academic streams. Subjects such as physical education, the arts, crafts, vocational skills, in addition to sciences, humanities, and mathematics, will be incorporated throughout the school curriculum. This policy also focuses on learning of languages by school children. It gives unprecedented emphasis on the need to learn different languages. It says that children will be exposed to different languages early on, with a particular emphasis on the mother tongue. There will be a major effort from both the central and the state governments to invest in a large number of language teachers in all regional languages around the country, and in particular for all languages mentioned in the Constitution of India. And it says that use of technology will be made for teaching and learning of different languages and to popularize language learning. Further, it says classical language like Sanskrit will be offered at all levels of school and higher education as an important enriching option for students, in addition to high quality offerings in Indian languages and English and other foreign languages such as Korean, Japanese, Thai, French, German, Spanish, etc. This will also be offered at the secondary level as well as at the higher educational level for students to learn about the cultures of the world and to enrich their global knowledge and mobility. So in this policy, there's a clear recognition of the importance of the learning of languages and cultures for all students. This policy also says that in addition to proficiency in languages, students will be given opportunity to develop scientific temper, creativity, innovativeness, sense of aesthetic art, wellness, then problem solving, logical reasoning, ethical and moral reasoning, knowledge and practice of human and constitutional values, gender sensitivity, environmental awareness and sensitivity, fundamental duties, citizenship skills, etc., etc. So this insistence on developing a holistic education right from the school level is something very encouraging in this policy, I believe. While talking about the desired transformation of higher education in India, the policy says that the purpose of quality higher education is more than creation of greater opportunities for individual employment. It represents the key to more vibrant, socially engaged, cooperative communities and a happier, cohesive, cultured, productive, innovative, progressive and prosperous nation. Thus, it aims to transform the present lopsided education system to one holistic and multidisciplinary education system that will aim to develop all capacities of human beings: intellectual, aesthetic, social, physical, emotional, and moral in an integrated manner. Such an education will help develop well-rounded individuals that possess the critical 21st century capacities in fields across arts, humanities, languages, sciences, social sciences, professional, technical, and vocational skill. So the curriculum will not be lopsided. It will not focus on just certain disciplines, but it will be aimed at developing or creating a holistic education. And in order to realize such a holistic education, and the policy says that an imaginative and flexible curricular structures will be created, which will enable creative combinations of disciplines for study and would offer multiple entry and exit points, thereby removing the currently prevalent rigid boundaries and creating new possibilities for lifelong learning. I think I have almost consumed the time allotted to me. So to conclude, I'd say that hopefully this vision that the vision that this new education policy sets will be realized, then we will have an education that will equally promote studies of all disciplines, something which is very, very important to build an ideal society, a truly prosperous nation, and the beautiful world. Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and thanks again to the organizers.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself. Diva Barua, ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Anupam Datta, for the illuminating presentation. Here, I would like to inform our speakers and participants that the Assam College Librarians Association has been doing a tremendous social service by hosting webinars for colleges as well as universities all over Assam. And today we have with us Dr. Birendra Pal, the coordinator of the ICT cell of the association. May I now request Dr. Birendra Pal to speak a few lines.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Diva Barua, ma'am, the coordinator of IQAC from L.C.B College. I will not take too much time, ma'am, because it's already 8:30. So, Honorable Resource Person, Dr. Jeffrey D. Long sir, and Honorable Inaugurator Dr. Anupam Datta sir, along with all the entire family of L.C.B. College. And last but not the least, the participants from this Zoom platform and also Facebook Live, because we have 4,000 followers in the Facebook Live. And many participants I have seen, lots of comments are there in the Facebook Live. So I welcome you on this platform. And this is the 135 number of webinar we have been contributing to the state of Assam and the nation of India. I'm very much proud to inform you that this is only possible because of your love, because of your acknowledgement, because of your kind presence. And being an Assam College Librarians Association ICTCL member, I'd like to again also like to thank you all, because this is the kind of service we're giving to the entire academic community during this pandemic situation. And still we are thinking some another way, what we can give after the COVID-19 situation. We have a very good plan on this aspect also, and most probably after 30, we are going to work on this plan also. And this is really a very important initiative that has been taken by L.C.B. College. And this is the, I think, most probably third number of webinar we are conducting with L.C.B. College. And again, I'd like to thank the coordinator of IQC, Dr. Diba Barua ma'am, for her active participation, because without her support and without her cooperation, we could not conduct this program in a very systematic way. And the topic that has been chosen today, the importance of arts and humanities for our common future, is really very, very important, because right now, just before half an hour, I was at Sadia College in Tinsukia district of Assam, and I was just talking about this topic itself, because we are searching somewhere some of the important aspects, like how we can create our innovative way, how we can think in a creative thinking. This is the thing we have to understand. And this is the right platform that has been chosen by L.C.B. College. I should really acknowledge the initiative taken by the college. And in future also, actually we're concentrating on the initiative of MHRD, like SWAYAM, e-learning aspects, and different kinds of initiatives of Government of India. Along with, we are also providing the technical support to the colleges of Assam, because when we started the kind of program in Assam, we thought that there was something kind of we can contribute to the state of Assam in the academic environment. And really, I'm very much thankful to that we get a good cooperation from the entire academic community, whether it is a teacher, whether it is a principal, whether it is a librarian, everyone has given us support. So with this, I'd like to conclude my speech that I wish the webinar will be a great success, in a sense, because the topic that has been chosen today will definitely give a good direction to our participants. And with this, I'd like to thank you again and again to L.C.B. College, and a special thanks to Dr. Diba Barua ma'am. Over to Dr. Diba Barua ma'am, please.
Thank you, Dr. Pal. We are glad to announce that we have with us today Dr. Jeffrey D. Long as a keynote speaker. Dr. Jeffrey D. Long is Professor of Religion and Asian Studies at Elizabethtown College in Pennsylvania, USA. We have with us an American academician who has a keen interest followed by extensive studies in Indian aesthetics and culture. He is associated with the Vedanta Society and the Hindu American Foundation. A major theme of Dr. Long's work is religious pluralism, and he is a crusader of religious forbearance, especially the Hindu religion. And this is substantiated by the number of articles and papers on Hinduism and Hindu identity. He has also authored 3 books pertaining to his perceptions and interpretations of religion, with the objective of clarifying general misconceptions and misinterpretations of the religions in India. He is also associated with the Association for Asian Studies, the Society for Asian and Comparative Philosophy, and the American Academy of Religion. In 2018, Dr. Long received the Hindu American Foundation's Dharma Seva Award for his efforts to help mainstream Americans understand Hinduism in academia and public schools. Today, he is here with us to discourse on a very secular topic, namely the importance of arts and humanities for a common future, an idea that is reflected in the new education policy of India. May I now request Dr. Long to deliver his keynote lecture.
Thank you very much for that very, very kind and warm introduction. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, very good, very good. I want to thank the organizers of this conference. It is such an important topic, and I want to especially thank Dr. Indrani Chaudhary, who first approached me about giving this presentation. We had been having some discussion on social media about this as well, and it's a vital topic both in India and in my country, in the US. And I'm going to talk about both countries and both situations and how in many ways they're similar. In some ways they're also very different. But there is this shared, I would say, crisis of the arts and humanities that we're all experiencing. I also want to thank Dr. Datta. His remarks were just outstanding. I'm going to probably repeat a good deal of what you said, sir. I think it's a very timely topic and one from which I think we could all benefit to reflect. Dr. Datta, I also noticed that behind you, those frames say Anupam, which is your name as well. I don't know if that was by design or not, but I really enjoyed your remarks very much. I'm going to try to share my screen to share with all of you a PowerPoint that I have. And I want to see if this works. Are you all seeing my screen now? Let's see.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to, sorry, I'm going to stop for a moment because something seemed to not work for a moment. Okay, here we are. So you're now seeing my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, for some reason I'm not able to advance the PowerPoint. I'm not sure why that's happening. So, sorry, I apologize for the technical delay here. Okay. I think I'll have to do this in a slightly different way. So, let's see. I apologize. Just one moment, please. Okay, I'm sharing. Okay, and now you can see the PowerPoint, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Okay, we'll just continue like this. So the importance of arts and humanities for our common future. Why are the arts and humanities important? Why are we talking about this topic today? So the basic thesis of my presentation today is as follows. The arts and humanities are made up of disciplines which help us pursue some of the deepest questions of human existence, questions of meaning and purpose. Why are we here? What does it mean to be a human being? What is the purpose of life? I'm reminded of a conversation I had with a colleague many years ago where we were talking about the fact that many of our students really tend to see their education as a step toward a career. And of course, that's extremely important. Those practical concerns are extremely important. But my colleague said to me, what do you say to a student who asks you, why is it important to study the humanities? Why does it matter to study these things? And my reply was this. I said, yes, we need to study something that enables us to earn a living, right? To make our way in the world. But we also sometimes ask the question, why are we living? What are we living for? What is the purpose of this life? Are we only here to acquire things, to earn money and buy products and then die? Is there nothing more to life than that? What about the deeper aspirations that have stirred the souls of human beings throughout history? These are things that are universal. These are questions that connect with all of us. One thing that set me off on my particular journey was the death of my father when I was very young. I was 12 years old when my father passed away, and we all, excuse me, we all experience loss. We all experience death. This is an inevitable part of life. And so, how do we deal with that? How do we comprehend a universe where we lose the people who are dear to us? What does this mean? So, the world's traditions, philosophies, religions, great thinkers have delved very deeply into these questions, and we don't have to start afresh with every new lifetime of asking what is the purpose of all of this. We have thousands of years of multiple traditions into which we can tap, and we're completely ignorant of this if we don't study the arts and humanities. So that's really essential, I think, to being you often hear the expression well-rounded, but I would say to really be a fully human being it requires us to engage with the wisdom that has been accumulated before us, and to engage with it critically and to apply it to our own lives. So that is one reason the arts and humanities are important. These disciplines help us to understand and express ourselves, and to explore the most profound yearnings of the human heart and mind. When we have the ability to tap into all of this wisdom that has come before us, we are better able to express ourselves. I'm sorry about my throat, but if we are able to quote from Shakespeare or from Kalidas or from Swami Vivekananda or from Albert Einstein, any of these great thinkers that have come before us, we're better able to articulate what is in our hearts. And so humanities gives us a language for expressing ourselves and expressing our most profound thoughts and feelings. These fields also help us develop critical thinking skills. The traditional Sanskrit term for this, of course, is viveka, this idea of discernment, of being able to analyze things. This is essential to maintaining a free society, enabling us to question policies and share ideas that can help us build a better future for all human beings. As Dr. Dutta said, these disciplines help us to create a more socially just society, a more peaceful and harmonious society, because it's very often the case that those who are in power are often trying to promote things which advance their own interests. Are these things really good for everyone? Are they good for all of society? We have to be able to question these things. And studying humanities helps develop that skill, that ability to hear something and think, well, is that really correct? How does that relate to other things that I know? How does that relate to my experience? And studying the humanities cultivates a habit of mind in which we are able to critically engage in this way. And the importance of this, I think, has become underscored by the phenomenon of social media, because we've probably all heard the term fake news before. If you get your information primarily from social media, you'll find a lot of it is very biased. A lot of it will just give you one side of a story and not the other sides. And some of it's just false. And yet people repeat things and they forward things. Without critical thinking skill, people will believe all kinds of stupid things, frankly, and make poor decisions, which will be detrimental to the whole society. So we all need to be critical thinkers. It's therefore essential for society to support these fields of study, which need to be part of the education of all people, regardless of their career path. In other words, even if you are pursuing a pre-professional field, if you're pursuing medicine or engineering or something on the technical side, those people also need to study the arts and humanities. They also need to study literature and history and philosophy, because as Dr. Dutta was saying, these things have often been separated in such a way that sometimes you might have people with very highly advanced technical skill, but they're not able to, for example, think about moral questions in a very deep way. And again, the decisions that these people make can sometimes have a very powerful impact on the rest of us. So we want people who are highly trained in technical areas to also have an appreciation for these deeper areas of life that the humanities are able to inculcate and impress upon us. What are the arts and humanities? What am I talking about? Because there are many, many fields that fall under this heading. And what I'm going to list here is not complete, but it's a good sampling of what kinds of fields make up the arts and humanities. So philosophy, right? My area of study, traditionally in India, the term for this is darshana or worldview, but engaging with questions about the nature of reality itself, the nature of knowledge, what is the meaning of existence? How do we coexist in the world? Philosophy focuses on these and many, many more questions. Literature. In India, traditionally, this is called Sahitya, right? Literature. The wonderful stories and writings through which people have expressed themselves for millennia in a variety of different cultures. Languages, bhasha, right? India is full of languages. You'll all laugh when I tell you that I occasionally encounter people in America who ask me if I speak Indian. There's, of course, no such language as Indian, just like there's no such language as European. It's a place of many, many languages. Languages enhance our world. They expand the range of knowledge into which we can tap. When you can study a work of literature in the original language in which it was written, only then do you really experience that work of literature. Just an example from my own life, I had read many, many translations of the Bhagavad Gita before I actually learned Sanskrit and could read it myself. And when I began reading it myself, it came alive in a way that it never completely could through a translation. A translation is never a perfect representation of the original. And there's so many subtleties in a language that we cannot catch if we don't know that language. So it opens up a whole new arena for expression and understanding. And of course, people in India appreciate this, I think, even more than people in the US, because so many of you grow up speaking 2 or 3 or 4 languages. And this ability to express yourself in so many different ways is something that greatly enriches their human experience. History, itihas as it's called in India traditionally, knowing what people have done in the past and analyzing that and understanding it, and of course applying it to our present day. There's this long repeated cliche about history repeating itself because we don't learn those lessons necessarily, and we need to see how the things that happen today, while many of them are new and unique, many of them repeat very ancient patterns. And if we haven't studied history, we don't know this. And as they often say, if you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it. Um, the creative arts, music, dance, theater, right? The things covered in Natya Shastra traditionally in India. These are such important elements of, I think, the education of any person, because so much of what we want to express in ourselves can't be put into words. We can't necessarily say it in literature or language or in a book. We have to sing it or play it on an instrument or act it out through dance or through theater. They're very profound ways of expressing those aspects of ourself that are not verbal or cognitive in nature, but are nevertheless very deeply part of who we are. My field of the academic study of religion. There's really no word for religion traditionally in India. Dharma sometimes is used. Yoga in its deeper meaning is close to the concept of religion. This is something that is not so present in India. There are a few places where there are departments of the study of religion, but religion has often been left to the religious communities to pass on. And I want to suggest that this has been detrimental in many ways, because if each community studies its own religion, and they know, everybody knows their own lingo, everyone knows their own particular terminology and set of assumptions. But if there's not a common conversation in which everyone is participating, right, a secular conversation, meaning secular in the broadest possible sense of including everyone, then misunderstanding inevitably arises. And the academic study of religion, the ability to analyze, and as Dr. Datta said, to look in a very logical and critical way at our most profound subjective feelings. This is really essential for being able to communicate those things in a way that's not hurtful, that's not harmful, and that other people can understand. And this is a field of study that's developed quite a lot in the Western world, but we're, as I'm going to say shortly, we're in some amount of danger at the current moment. Um, Differences in the Indian and US educational systems. Many of you may be familiar with this, but some of you may not be so familiar with the US situation. So in India, there's a strong role for the central government, which determines educational policy. The new educational policy is, of course, the latest example of that. This document is going to shape what happens from the largest university in an urban area to the smallest school in a village. The central government in India is very strong, and it shapes the policies. It determines what is done at all levels of the society in terms of education. In the US, we call it the federal government instead of the central government, but it's the same basic concept. It sets broad policy. It sort of sets very broad goals, national standards that everyone needs to meet. But most regulation of education happens at the state level in the US. So US has states just like India. You know, you have Assam, you have West Bengal, you have Haryana and UP and Maharashtra and so on. We have Pennsylvania, we have Kentucky, Missouri, Illinois, Massachusetts, California, New York. The states really have a lot of power over education in the U.S. The detailed regulations, you know, the broad policy comes from the federal government, but the day-to-day running of education really is at the state level more often in the U.S. In India, because of the strong central government support for education, most of the best institutions are the public institutions. The famous universities in India, they're public universities. And education is not very expensive. Now, some of you may disagree. Expensive is a relative term. But I found that when I came for a couple of years and studied in JNU in Delhi from the US, what I had to pay was really almost nothing compared to what I had to pay in the US. It was more expensive to fly to India than to study in India. It was not expensive at all. Everything's supported by the government. In the US, the best institutions are private. You know these famous names like Harvard, Yale, Princeton, University of Chicago. They are not run by the state. They are private organizations. They are run by themselves. They have to follow the state and the federal regulations, and they do get funding from the state and from the federal government, but they are basically private concerns, and they set their own policies. So there's a lot of diversity in the US. Sometimes I have Indian friends who contact me through email or Facebook, and they'll say, you know, how do you do this in the US? And how do you do that in the US? And I have to say, well, it depends on the university. And everyone's always very frustrated when I say that because there's no single answer. Every university has its own policies, even though, again, general standards are set by the government. And education has become extremely expensive in the United States. Some of you might have heard of this. It requires students to take very large loans. And this has become a big problem in our society because when you're starting your career, before you've even begun your job, you already owe a massive amount of money. And you have to pay this very heavy debt. And it's extended, you know, usually for maybe 20, 30 years. But getting an education has become as expensive as buying a house in the US. It's become a very difficult thing to do. This has shaped a lot of the trends that I'm going to talk about next. So looking at the Indian situation, the new educational policy indicates strong government support for arts and humanities as part of the education of every citizen. I really, Dr. Chaudhary sent me a copy of the policy and I was able to look at it before I presented to you. And it's really quite an inspirational document. I was ready to be very critical because very often government documents, you know, sort of, they aren't necessarily inspirational reading. But this was very encouraging, and a lot of what Professor Dutta said, I would reaffirm. The breaking down of barriers between different disciplines and encouraging everyone to study some amount of arts and humanities, even if it's not your specialization, even if you're planning to be a scientist, a doctor, an engineer, or to go into business. Everyone needs to know some history, some literature, some language. um, some creative arts, some philosophy. Everyone should know something about all of these fields, and the new educational policy encourages that. And in fact, I think in many ways what the new educational policy envisions is what was previously the case in America, but which we are now slipping away from, unfortunately. And I think that the new educational policy in many ways shows what we should also be doing in America. Traditionally, there's been a strong focus, that is in India, on career-centered education, which emphasizes technical skills, science, engineering, economics, or business, and so on. And this is what Dr. Dutta was saying, and this was my observation as well when I studied in India. I found that a lot of the brightest people were attracted to fields where they could make money, right? They could earn a living, and going into the arts and humanities was not seen as a conventional career path. It was sort of for eccentric people like myself and probably many of you who love these things. But most parents, they want their children to go and make a lot of money and do well in a material sense. So this was the focus in India, and of course, because there's a lot of poverty in India, that people want to raise their standard of living. They want to raise their level of economic achievement, and so they go into fields that promise that. A strong culture that focuses on the humanities has not typically been present in India in the large public universities. This has been more present in traditional institutions. You have Sanskrit Vidyapeeths, for example, but these don't form a conventional career path, like I was saying. It's not a mainstream uh, destination to go and study Sanskrit and study ancient literature and ancient philosophies and teach others about that. It's, let's go, learn how to, do heart surgery or build a bridge, or, something very practical and technically minded. The academic study of religion has largely been absent from the public institutions in India. This has again been the preserve of the traditional religious communities. And I mentioned this previously, that this has been somewhat to the detriment, I think, of religious life in India, because people are not learning about one another's communities and one another's teachings in an objective and scholarly way. Often, if you learn about another community, you're hearing stereotypes, an objective study of religion where everyone has the same curriculum and they're learning the same basic core facts about everyone in a way that's both respectful and critical. You can do both at the same time. This is not something that has been promoted a lot in India. So the new educational policy, I find, is very encouraging, because it points to an education that would do all of these things, that would infuse the arts and humanities into the technical education, that would give more of a voice to things like traditional literatures and so on. The US situation is in some ways opposite, but in some ways parallel with that of India. Traditionally, there was a strong focus on the arts and humanities in America. These disciplines were seen as prestigious fields in which all educated people had some background. We have a tradition in America of something we call, at some institutions, it's called general education, and others it's called the core curriculum. And there's some amount of arts and humanities that everyone studies, and also some amount of science and mathematics. Everyone has to know at least a little bit about all of these things. And this is a value that has informed US education from the very beginning. But the focus has shifted in recent years to more career-focused disciplines, science, engineering, etc., just like India, right? Especially due to anxiety about getting a good paying job after borrowing a large amount of money to pay for one's education. There's a really serious crisis that US education is in now, because even if a student loves literature or history or philosophy, they feel compelled to study a technical field because they need to get a job where they can pay for this massive amount of money that they've borrowed in order to get the education in the first place. So in fact, we're even reaching a situation where you see articles every now and then here in the US where people say, is it worth it to get an education? Just finish high school and go into a trade, because you're going to borrow all this money. You might enter into a field where you can earn a little more, but then you're going to spend all that money paying for the education that you got. So what's the point? Right? So it's a real crisis. And this plays into, I don't want to be too conspiratorial or too political, but This plays into political forces, I believe, that are invested in keeping people uneducated. Our current president has once said that he loved uneducated people most of all, right? They were the ones who supported him the most. If you're educated, especially in the humanities, you raise critical questions, and leaders often don't like critical questions. They want to, they want to be unchallenged. And this is very dangerous for democracy. And India and US are both democracies. They have very proud traditions of democracy, but we cannot assume that democracy will always exist. We have to sustain it. Each generation has to continue working to ensure that democracy continues. And this requires everyone to be educated. As universities and colleges have come under financial stress, they've shifted resources to the popular career-focused pre-professional programs and away from, it says way, but I meant to say away from arts and humanities. I have experienced this at my own college recently. Financial stress. Why is there financial stress? Well, again, the universities are private, and they have become increasingly expensive for a variety of reasons over the years. And because they're so expensive, fewer students are attending them. And because fewer students are attending them, it becomes even more difficult for them to continue their programming. So what do? Well, they look at the market. They say, what programs are attracting the most students? Okay, we'll build a lot of programs in that area, and we'll cut these other things. Well, what does that mean? That means a lot of new faculty in the healthcare professions, in engineering, in business, and it means fewer faculty in areas like mine. I am now the only full-time professor in my field at the college where I teach. There used to be 4 of us, right? Now there's 1, right? It has been greatly reduced. Many arts and humanities programs have been cut completely. I know of colleagues at other universities who lost their entire program. And in my case, it has been reduced. We just have this very small program now. So this leads to a number of other questions. All of this is happening, by the way, despite the fact that it has been repeatedly shown that the study of the arts and humanities greatly enhances the skills, even of those whose main pursuits are pre-professional. Let me give you an example. So suppose someone wants to be a doctor. What do they study? Well, the traditional field of study is biology or maybe chemistry or biochemistry. You study something connected with the sciences that are related to medicine. Well, it's actually the case in America that as long as you take enough science courses to pass the medical exams that you have to take to get into medical school, the rest of your courses can be on any topic you like. And there are students who will pursue an arts or humanities major while they're preparing for medical school. You can do both, right? They don't have to be compartmentalized, as Dr. Dutta was saying. So I knew a student a number of years ago who was preparing for medical school. He was a brilliant student. He got into Harvard Medical School, very extremely bright student. His main field of study, you'll never guess, it was classical literature. He studied Latin poetry, right? And when he told me this wonderful story, when he went to be interviewed by the big medical schools like Harvard and so on, the professors who interviewed him were always very curious about his major field. They said, you're going to be a doctor, but you studied Latin poetry. Tell me about Latin poetry. And they got into these very engaging conversations about the Roman Empire and Greek and Roman culture and the gods and all of these interesting things. And the professors would always tell this student, they said, I've just interviewed 100 biology majors. And this is the most interesting conversation I've had with anyone who is applying to this medical school, because the people who had studied science had studied only science, and they could talk about science and they could talk about it very articulately, but they were very narrowly confined to just that one topic. And here this man was able to talk to a student who was just as qualified as those others. He had done, his scores on his exams were outstanding. He could go to any medical school that he wanted. But he was able to have a conversation about art and literature and history and poetics, which none of the others could do, right? However, The conventional wisdom is still, you want to go into that field, you study that thing, right? So we have become more compartmentalized, despite the fact that the humanities, and repeatedly there have been studies that have shown that people who study in the arts and humanities, not immediately, but maybe 10 years into their career, they're actually typically earning more than those who did a purely pre-professional route, because they've developed critical thinking skills and communication skills, and the people they work with are very impressed with them because of that. So they're able to advance themselves in a way that others cannot. So the humanities has this very pragmatic value as well. So some critical questions about the current situation. In the US context, the shift to technical fields is understandable, given the financial constraints on both institutions and their students. I'm not going to tell my students, oh, don't study engineering or business or law or medicine, because they need to pay their debt and they need to earn. So I'm not going to dispute that with them. But if it becomes impossible to study the arts and humanities at all, suppose you've gone to a university where these fields have been cut, how will these fields continue to exist? Who will study art, history, philosophy, and literature? And who will be there to teach it, right? Even if we agree that, yes, everybody should study a little bit of arts and humanities, even if they're going into a technical field, but who's going to teach it if it's not being taught anywhere, right? If it's not possible to study it, if it's not possible, if society is not generating strange people like me and many of you who love art and literature and religion and philosophy and study these things for a living, if that social space is not being created, it's going to disappear, right? This is my fear. Even if the study of the arts and humanities becomes confined to the general education requirements of all students, who will teach these fields if it is not possible to specialize in them at most institutions? I'll give you an example. I've had a couple students over the years. Most are in technical fields and they take my courses to satisfy their general education requirement. But I've had a couple who have gone on to graduate school and gotten PhDs and gone on to teach in my field. Well, if my program did not exist, what would they have done? They would probably have left our college. One student in particular I'm thinking of, he came to study engineering. He studied it for one semester and discovered that he hated it, did not enjoy it. It was not his career path, but he really enjoyed the classes he was taking with me and with my colleagues, and he changed his program. He started working with us, and now he gives presentations on Gen philosophy at national conferences, right? But how would he have found his career path if our college did not offer religious studies? He would have had to go to another college, or he would have found some other field and where he was very unhappy, right? Or he might have left college completely. Say, oh, this is not for me. So we need to have a space for these fields. It is likely that one will be able to specialize in these fields only at elite universities with abundant funding, like Harvard and so on. This, I fear, is the direction that we're going, is that the arts and humanities will become a luxury item that only wealthy people can afford. What happens to a society that loses its critical thinkers? As I'd already had said, our leaders very often will take advantage of this. We will not be able to differentiate between the genuine knowledge that we see, for example, on the internet, and the fake news that gets passed around by people. Right? We'll lose that ability. And an image that we often use in America is, people will become like sheep. Right? They'll just go wherever they are led. We need to be critical thinkers. We need to be able to say, wait a minute, I'm not sure if I agree with that, and to articulate why. The emphasis on arts and humanities in the new educational policy in India is encouraging. In fact, what I see possibly is that the US is going backward to the way India has been in regard to education, and India is now looking forward and moving toward where the US used to be, right? Actually valuing these disciplines. However, pursuing a career in the arts and humanities in India needs to become a pathway to a viable living. If it's going to attract really good scholars, there are already excellent people studying arts and humanities in India, but it's because you're very dedicated. You love these things, you think they're important. But if it's going to really be vibrant, it needs to become a path to a good standard of living. So you'll all be happy to know that I am suggesting that you all need a raise. You all you all should get more funding so that this area will flourish as the new educational policy envisions. My one critical comment, I think, about the new educational policy is not the policy itself, but I have a concern, or maybe I'll say it positively, I have a hope that the funding will be put in place to actually make the new educational policy's ideals a reality. It's a wonderful policy. The implementation has to be taken very seriously. It has to occur. It has to be a priority. Otherwise, it's a beautiful policy that, you know, people read, but nothing happens, right? So it needs to be really and truly implemented. And I hope it will be. I hope it will be. That is the end of my formal prepared remarks. I stop sharing my screen now. And I would like to open the space up for questions. If anyone wants to ask a question or follow up on anything, I'm quite happy to take any questions in the time that remains, or if time remains. Professors like to talk a lot, right? That's we profess for a living. So this is why I talked a long time.
Sir, thank you, Dr. Jeffrey Long, sir, for your wonderful speech and wonderful presentation, sir. I'm very much thankful to you for giving your valuable time to this platform, sir. And now I'd like to invite Dr. Diba Barua, the coordinator of IQAC, for the question and answer session. Please, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Long, for such a perceptive lecture. Now, I would like to forward a few questions, to both the guests from the participants. There are very few questions. The first question is, is Dr. Datta present? Is Dr.
Yes.
Anupam Datta present?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I think Dr. Datta can take this first question.
yeah, please.
Because here the question is that, does the new education policy, oh sorry, this is my question. Uh, the question is, generally we give more importance to science than arts. What is your idea on this?
Uh, yes, this is something that I have very briefly dealt with in my speech. I said that there's a general mindset among the people in India for the last couple of decades that the study of arts and humanities do not make a student employable. And therefore there is more emphasis on the study of sciences and also business courses, because these courses are supposed to be more supposed to give employability to the students. As I said, even the government policies for the last 3-4 decades seem to be quite lopsided against arts and humanities. There has been more emphasis on science education, on technical education, on so-called professional education, education that gives students an advantage, an edge to be professionally successful. And therefore, somewhere, the study of arts and humanities were undermined in our university systems. And now I believe that this education policy, if implemented as has been planned, will change the scenario, and there'll be more emphasis on holistic education, as Dr. Jeffrey said, that even if you are pursuing engineering, it doesn't mean that you cannot study arts and humanities. Uh, Education has to be ideally holistic. As the policy also says that there will be regular specialization, but that doesn't mean that if you're into sciences, you will only study physics or chemistry, and you have no business studying other disciplines, arts or humanities disciplines. That should not be the case, and I believe that this new education policy, will gradually change the mindset of the people, and we will truly have a holistic education in our universities. Thank you. Uh, Diba Borua, ma'am, please unmute yourself. You're not audible.
So there is a question which can be addressed by both the speakers, okay, from their own perspectives or from, the policies of their countries. So the question is, how do we need to address the issue regarding careers in humanities and arts?
Well, if I could take that, I suppose in both countries, I think the answer would be the same. That these careers need to be well compensated. And I'm not saying, I mean, it sounds like a very self-interested statement, right? Like, give me more money. I'm not saying that. I'm very happy with, what I make and so on. But so often the reward of these careers is just the fact that we love what we study, we love what we teach, and we enjoy it, and it's very satisfying. Uh, However, what most people are concerned about is, no, yes, but I need to eat, I need to feed my family, I need to pay the bills, and I need to pay this in America, this enormous debt, right, that so many students carry from college. So I think that the salaries of professors need to be raised to be commensurate with the amount of expense that goes into getting the education, right? I spent at least as many years studying Sanskrit and Indian philosophy, probably more years than the average doctor spends in medical school. But doctors are paid much, much more than someone who is a professor in a field like mine. Now, of course, their field is valuable. They're saving people's lives. I don't make any life or death decisions. I'm not saying I should be paid the same as a doctor, but I should also not have to go into crippling debt in order to pursue my passion and the thing that I am most talented at. And I was personally very fortunate. I got a lot of scholarships and fellowships and so on, which helped me. But a lot of our students, that they have to borrow an enormous amount of money, and if the field is not able to compensate them proportionally, then that's a problem. And of course, another issue, which of course we need to address more here in America, is the cost itself. Why should people have to borrow so much money to get an education? And this is, of course, a big political issue. When people in America talk about doing something in a more centralized way, like healthcare, for example, there's a big political bloc that says, "Oh, that's socialism. That's terrible. We can't do that." Whereas like India has socialism written into its constitution, right? So it's not a problem. Like, of course, government takes care of these things. That's what government is for. So we have a big sort of political conversation that we have to have in America about what is the purpose of our government, because if it's not supporting what people do and the way we live, then what is its purpose? It becomes a very politicized issue very quickly. So we need to remove, I would say, the financial disincentives that are there for studying the humanities, either through raising the pay of professors in these fields, or I think even better, probably reducing the cost of education. Because without that cost, then you can live nicely as a professor doing something you love, and you're able to live from it. So I think this is a very important thing. A lot of my students, I think, would really enjoy going into my field, but they don't think they can make a living from it.
Thank you, Dr. Long. Now, There is actually an observation from Dr. Paramita Das from Guwahati University, from the Department of History. And she makes the observation that actually we college and university faculty are pretty well paid, and many more men are now coming forward to study arts and humanities, as men are traditionally viewed as the primary breadwinners. So now there is another question, that education system is on the brink of extinction, as there is a void between what we do and what we teach. What is your opinion on our present education system?
Dr. Datta, do you want to address that or?
Yes, very briefly. That's what I believe this new education policy seeks to address. There is a gap between what we do and what we teach, and as I said earlier, that when you uh, wish to become a doctor, and it's not merely the medicine that you do in your life. There are so many things, so many areas that you involve yourself. But when you become a doctor, you never involve yourself, never get to learn these things in your institutions, in your educational systems. So this is what needs to change, and I think this new education policy addresses that area. And no doubt there's a gap, and we need to bridge that gap. And this is what holistic education is all about. Holistic education aims at developing the kind of ideal individuals that we need in our societies. And unfortunately, that has been on the decrease, and hopefully we will be able to bridge the gap that she talked about. Uh, what we do and what we teach. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Datta. Now, I have a question. This is my question, that rote learning, you know, rote learning is rampant in India. And evidently, there is lack of critical thinking. So how do we address this issue? Or is this problem present in the USA also?
In the US, we have almost, I would say, the opposite problem. That I agree with you about rote learning, and I have so many friends from India, and a lot of education just seems to be memorization of facts. I have a friend who studies Indian philosophy, and a lot of what she does is basically memorization of lists of terms and what they mean and so on. And there is that lack of the critical engagement, and this I think needs to be inculcated, that we build into the study of the humanities in India this tradition of ask, asking questions and asking the students to think about what they've studied, and encouraging them to ask questions about it. And there's this wonderful tradition in India of critical thinking. If you look back at all the great philosophers, you look at Shankaracharya, Nagarjuna, all of these thinkers were constantly arguing and asking questions and engaging with one another. That needs to be revived. How to do it, I think it will require support from the government, of course, but also professors themselves need to be educated in this process, because we tend to teach in the way that we were also taught. So if you learn through rote learning, then when you're in the classroom, you'll start to teach through rote learning. Um, in America, like I said, we have almost the opposite problem. We do teach critical thinking a lot, but sometimes we're weak on the rote learning side. I sometimes wish my students were a little better at memorizing some of the terminology, for example. They need to know what these words mean, and they're good at having a conversation about the substance, but uh, you know, we need to, I think, revive memorization. And the word memorize, uh, just the word memorization terrifies students in America, and they don't like to memorize. In India, people are very good at memorizing, but then, okay, what do you think about what you memorized? And then so there's almost a complementarity where the one country is strong, the other is weak, and vice versa.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself. Diva Burua, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Long. I'm just looking for questions, a lot of compliments pouring in for both the speakers. And, a lot of participants, are asking about, access to scholarships, to pursue studies in the USA. There are so many questions.
Yes, I noticed that in the chat box, and also about applying to university. And I get a lot of questions about this from people through Facebook Messenger and email and so on. And the the frustrating answer is that it really depends on the individual university. What I recommend that people do is go on the internet and research different universities in the US. What are their requirements? What are their resources for financial aid? If you're thinking about financial aid, the one organization that comes to mind very quickly is through the US government is the Fulbright Scholarship Program. Fulbright brings a lot of scholars from different countries to the US and also sends scholars from the US to other countries. We hosted a Fulbright scholar from India here a number of years ago, but our institution was not able to support the person very well. But a lot of the more prestigious universities, the bigger universities, they host Fulbright scholars. So Fulbright is a program to look into. And I would highly recommend that people look into Fulbright. There are other organizations, they're private foundations, and you really just have to research it. I don't have a simple answer to how do you come to study in the US. You have to look for the universities that offer the program you want, and then look at their individual requirements, because we're very decentralized here. So every place has its own requirements, its own policies. And so you have to, pick maybe 3 or 4 or 5 institutions you're really very interested in and study them very closely. And also contact the institutions directly. They have financial aid offices, departments whose entire job is helping students to come and study. So they can also give you good information about that. Financial aid is not an area that I haven't had to think about it since I was paying for my own schooling. So and that was many years ago now. But I say contact the financial aid departments of the universities that you're interested in.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Long. I don't think any more questions, are coming in. But I think I have to make one observation that at the end of the day, whether we study humanities or science, the important question is that like we must be able to earn our own bread and butter. Don't you think so?
Yes, because that comes before everything, right? If you're not able to live and to feel secure, then you're not able to pursue the higher areas of study. There was a psychologist in America many years ago, Dr. Abraham Maslow, and he talked of what he called the hierarchy of needs. And he actually got this idea from Indian philosophy, because there's also the idea of the Purusharthas, right? The various goals that we work for in life. And before you can think about higher concepts and deeper meanings in life, yes, you have to be able to eat and drink and be alive, and you have to feel safe, right? Security is extremely important. So those needs are fundamental. And if you feel insecure, if you think you're going to be in poverty any day, uh, you can't really dedicate a lot of thought to these deeper subjects. And also, anxiety is, there have been good scientific studies on this. It actually reduces our ability to think clearly and well. And so we have to be in a secure situation. So this is why I think government policies like the new education policy are so important, because government, in my opinion, is there to create the conditions where we can all thrive. And we can only really thrive when the arts and humanities thrive.
Thank you, Dr. Long. I don't think there are any more questions. I'll just sum up the session from, one of the observations from one of the participants, that it it was an excellent session, very insightful, informative, relevant, and worth every minute invested. The, so these are the compliments. I mean, similar compliments have poured in, so I've just summed up all of them together. Thank you so much, Dr. Long and Dr. Datta. Over to
Thank
Devinder Pal, Dr. Pal.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And really a very wonderful season. And we are coming to the end of the program. And that is the vote of thanks. I request Indrani Chaudhary ma'am to offer the vote of thanks. But I'm very sorry that her name is not displayed in the screen. So in absence of her, I would like to invite Dr. Diva Borua ma'am to offer the vote of thanks, ma'am.
Oh, Indrani Chaudhary is there.
I can see her name, ma'am, actually. By the device name, actually, I have to locate her name.
I mean, she's ready with this thing. Dr. Indrani Chaudhary.
Yes, ma'am. If you are there, ma'am, please write in the chat box your name so that I can identify your device, ma'am. Indrani Chaudhary, ma'am, if you are hearing me, please write your name in the chat box so that I can unmute, ma'am. And with this, we are coming to the end again and again. Again, I'd like to thank the Honorable Resource Person, Dr. Jeffrey Long, sir,
Hey,
for
unmute Kore Kuma.
giving this
N2.
beautiful and wonderful time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm grateful to have been able to speak with all of you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. And the season was really, sir, wonderful, because we have received lots of comments in the Zoom chat box, and in the Facebook Live also we have received lots of comments, and lots of viewers are there in the Facebook also, sir.
Very nice.
Indrani Chaudhary ma'am, if you are hearing us, then please write your name in the chat box so that I can identify you.
N2, she said.
Dr. Pal,
N2.
Dr. Pal, why did you unmute all?
It will be difficult. Otherwise, we can't hear everybody. If I unmute everybody, na?
Can you just unmute for a second?
Yeah. I have done that. We'll see the reaction if I unmute everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Brenda.
Hello.
This one. MIA2.
Yeah, I identified. So again, thank you very much. And again, I'd like to unmute MI A20 ma'am, Indrani Chaudhary ma'am, to offer the vote of thanks, ma'am. Ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, ma'am, please.
Yeah. I consider. Hello. Allow me.
Yeah, ma'am, please.
Please. I consider it a great privilege to offer the vote of thanks to everyone who has been a part of this memorable and successful webinar. First of all, I would like to thank our principal, Dr. Edison Ali sir, for his unstinted support for the success of this webinar. especially thanks to Dr. Diba Borua, Coordinator IQAC, for her encouragement and active participation from the beginning to the end. Today, my words are not enough to express my gratitude on behalf of my college to thank Professor Jeffrey D. Long, sir, Elizabethan College, Pennsylvania, USA, for his thought-provoking lecture. I really thank you from my bottom of heart, sir. Really, I am very grateful to you. I would like to thank Dr. Anupam Datta, Assistant Professor in Borbhag College, Nalbari in Assam, on his new education policy 2020. My gratitude to the academic subcommittee of ACTA for their active support. In the same breath, I would also like to thank General Secretary ASLA Association for technical support and other support for this webinar. We just have to conceive the idea and the technical are taken care by ASLA. Lastly, but not importantly, I would like to thank all our learned scholar, academicians, and others, students from different parts of the country and the world. I would like to thank to everyone for sharing a common interest and participating in this meaningful webinar program. Once again, thank you, sir. It's a great pleasure, sir. Thank you to all.
Thank you.
Good time, sir. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Indrani Chaudhary ma'am, for offering the vote of thanks. And you also a part of it. And really, it's a family environment we are getting with L.C.B. College.
Yes,
And
yes, exactly.
Yes, thank you. A special thanks because we are
I know. In several times I tried and just worried about it that you are not connecting me. Why? That's why I want just. It's an important moment for me. It's every moment I enjoyed, but that the last moment I was that problems creating and I was upset a little bit.
Dr. Pal, mute her.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you,
Consider
ma'am.
me.
Actually, it is a
Dr.
technical
Pal,
problem.
mute her.
Yeah. Actually, it is a technical problem, and
Mute her,
being
mute
a
her.
host, I have to follow the guideline of the technical things. So, thank you again and again, the entire viewers on the Zoom platform and the.
Hello. I feel sad
Yeah.
for them.
Dr. Pal, mute her.
Thank you, everyone.
Everybody, good night.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
We really enjoyed.
I have really
Special
enjoyed this event.
thanks
It's
to
a very,
Dr.
very.
Long and Dr. Datta.
Yes, it's a very interesting season and we're coming to the end of this program. And before this, I'd like to request all the participants, please switch on your video and come closer to the screen so that we can take a screenshot of the program together. Dear participants, please switch on your video and come closer to the screen so that we can take a screenshot together. Yes, give me just 5 seconds. I'll manage everything. So thank you. And with this, we're coming to the end of this program. Till then, stay safe, stay secure, and wish you a very good night. I think to Jeffrey Long sir, it is good afternoon to him. And
Yes.
again,